Alrighty, so the end of 2025 is getting closer and closer, and as we race towards the holidays and 2025 comes to a close, we do have some final releases of the year to look forward to. Not a ton, admittedly, since December is not typically a huge release for games, probably because most of that usually drops in November, but there are still one or two heavy hitters touching down in December, and a fair amount of indies that look really promising. But for now, let's kick this off with a game right out of the gate that I'm very much looking forward to, and that would be Marvel Cosmic Invasion, releasing on December 1st for PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch. After an unprecedented attack is launched across the galaxy, heroes like Nova, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Cap jump into action to keep a harrowing fate at bay. Featuring full-color pixel art designs and a swap tag team system which lets you bounce between two of your favorite heroes at a button press, this is shaping up to be a brilliant beat-em-up that harkens back to the arcade classics of the 90s. Developed by tribute games of TMNT Shredder's Revenge fame, this just feels like it's going to be the perfect drop in time for the holidays, and especially so for any millennials out there who grew up during the genre's heyday, and this will be a day one purchase for me as exactly that sort of millennial. That and, well, I'm just a huge Marvel fan in general, but still. Also, it was recently announced this will be getting a physical release, and I don't think that's coming until March, however, and if you get the Switch 2 version, there is a deluxe edition available, albeit at a $10 premium, which I think is about $69.99, but it does include a steelbook, and it should also be coming with the entire game on cart instead of a game keycard, which I'm sure a lot of people will be happy about. Next up, turning towards some isometric horror, we have the 80s themed action RPG, Kingdom of Night, releasing on December 2nd for PC. Also featuring a pixelized art style, Kingdom of Night takes place in the small town of Miami, Arizona in 1987. After a cult unwittingly summons an ancient evil, John is awoken by his neighbor being kidnapped and sets out to fight back the invasion and rescue his friends. It takes place through an hour-by-hour experience, which I really like because I used to play a lot of very old Sierra point-and-click adventure games that had a similar structure. But rather than point-and-click, here you'll be able to choose your class, customize your abilities, and collect unique gear to keep evil at bay, and it also features co-op so you don't have to go it alone against the forces of darkness. Visually, it kind of reminds me of that game Crawl that released a few years back, and just like Cosmic Invasion, there's a demo available if you'd like to give it a shot right now to see if you dig the combat. Moving on, we have the first-person survival horror thriller game, She's Leaving, also arriving on December 2nd for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Based on real-life forensic analysts, She's Leaving has you wandering through the dark halls of a spooky estate as Charles Dalton, a blood spatter analyst following up on the disappearance of multiple people in the snowy region of Haywood. But upon your arrival and hearing a foghorn blow, you'll realize that you're not alone, and in short order be navigating the dimly lit corridors of this Tudor mansion. Based on what's been shown in the trailer and the PS5 specific features preview, this is shaping up to be a pretty cerebral experience. Also, I'm assuming based on what we've seen so far that it will be more of a cat-and-mouse evasion experience than focusing very heavily on combat, but hey, as long as the investigations, puzzle solving, and story are compelling, I'd definitely be curious to try this one out. Plus, as a game that's set in a creepy mansion in the dead of winter, December feels like a pretty perfect release window for horror fans. Next up, moving on from psychological horror to roguelike survival action, we have Let It Die Inferno, dropping on December 3rd for PS5 and PC. In Let It Die, you'll play as a raider who has to drop into the depths of a hellgate and then fight to make it back alive. While on your journey, death means that you will lose all of the items you're carrying along with your own body, but mastery abilities get etched into your spine, permanently giving you a sense of progression as you attempt multiple runs. There's a crafting system as well, which allows you to build up new gear for future adventures, but you can also just run across useful gear in the environment. And it's hard not to make comparisons with Arc Raiders on this one, especially given how much time I've sunk into that game over the past couple of weeks, but this looks to be a more lighthearted and arcadey experience by comparison. I don't know that it'll actually pull me away from Arc Raiders, but I'll certainly be watching with curiosity to see how the reviews pan out, and if it might end up being a breezier alternative to the brutality of the world of Speranza. But now let's turn to what will almost certainly be the biggest release of December, and one that I'm very much looking forward to, and that will be Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, releasing on December 4th for Switch and Switch 2. And I don't think it's unfair to say this is the most anticipated title for December, and more so considering it's been just shy of like 20 years since we got Metroid Prime 3, which is just crazy to think about. Naturally, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny on this one, and indeed there already has been on some of this early previews, but I'm really hopeful it'll do well because Samus does deserve to have more 3D entries than she gets, I feel. And from what we've seen so far, it is looking pretty butter smooth, and the ability to switch to mouse mode on the fly for greater precision looks like a great innovation. And we now know that Samus will have a motorcycle, the Viola, and despite the fact that it would have been great to just have a new entry in the Prime series before now, I'm glad it's dropping in the winter months because this is another series that lends itself well to the cold weather, because I mean, what's colder than a lone bounty hunter in in the vastness of space. Well, that, and naturally there's a cold biome in the game as well, but yeah, putting aside my seasonal gaming tendencies, this should be a real showcase for what the Switch 2 hardware can do, and it's pretty slick that you can choose between 4K 60 or 1080p at 120 FPS, at least on the Switch 2. Next up, let's switch from 3D to HD 2D with Octopath Traveler 0, also dropping on December 4th for Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, and Windows. Featuring over 30 different party members you can recruit with formations of 8 characters, the combat here should be pretty familiar. It will retain the break and boost features and turn-based combat from prior entries, and true to form, it looks absolutely gorgeous. Personally, even though I love the first one, I still have like 4 more stories to wrap up in that game, and I haven't even touched Octopath Traveler 2 yet, so while I'm thrilled for fans and have absolutely no problem with those gorgeous HD 2D graphics that make the game look the way I remember 16-bit games from back in the day, this probably won't be a day one purchase for me, but I'm sure it makes its way into my library sooner or later, probably long after I've finished another Persona game or the original Octopath Traveler. But now let's move back to space and, well, horror for a second with Routine, releasing on December 4th for PC and Xbox. Routine is a first-person sci-fi horror game that takes place in an abandoned lunar base designed around an 80s vision of the future. Visually, this game is already hitting all the right notes for me with that chunky, analog, Ridley Scott alien sort of aesthetic. It also features a minimal UI to keep the atmosphere front and center, and you'll have a cosmonaut assistance tool / cat to access terminals, navigate the environment, and identify clues. And in true horror game fashion, the moment-to-moment gameplay will revolve around running, hiding, or making the bold decision to defend yourself against the terrifying threats that lurk in the halls of the abandoned moon base. Naturally, this is hugely appealing to me as a horror fan, but I'm going to try to go in as blind as possible to see just how spooky it really is. Next up, we've got not a new game, but a game that's getting a wider rollout on other platforms, and that would be Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, coming to PS5, Xbox, and Steam on December 8th. And this was the Switch 2 that got most of my playtime with that system's launch, and it's nice to see the expanded edition coming to other platforms now. This is another series I hope to finish one day, but I'm sure it's still a fair ways off, which is a shame because every time I play a Yakuza game I absolutely love my time with it. This version in particular has new cutscenes, English and Chinese dubs, and an online multiplayer mode, Red Light Raid. So if you've never had a chance to experience the unique storytelling, satisfying combat, and overt weirdness of the Yakuza series, this will probably be a good place to start. Granted, I've seen some debate from fans whether it's best to start with Yakuza Kiwami, the actual first entry, or well, I guess a remaster of the first entry, or Yakuza 0. I suspect you'll have a great time either way, and I know I certainly did. Moving on, also on December 8th, we have a new Devolver digital release, Skate Story, coming to PC and PS5. And I'm an absolute sucker for Devolver as a publisher since they just put out so many weird, off-the-wall releases in any given year, and there's nothing different about Skate Story. Within which you'll be a demon in the underworld who's made of glass and pain. The Lord of Darkness gives you a skateboard with a straightforward deal, skate to the moon and swallow it, and you'll be freed from your misery. Clearly the visuals go hard here, and while I'm sure it'll be a quirky enough journey on its own merit, I'm also kind of reminded of Thumper, which seem to have similar elements. And while this isn't a rhythm game necessarily, it's certainly a vibe all of its own, and there is a demo available for this right now on Steam if you want to go ahead and give it a whirl and see what it's all about. And finally, let's round this out with a game that I mentioned a while back on the channel, but I can't remember in what video I actually mentioned that, and that would be Code Violet coming to PS5 on December 12th. Code Violet is a third-person action horror game that takes place in the 25th century. A cataclysm has unfortunately left Earth uninhabitable, and the Aeon colony uses time travel technology to, if I am reading this right, abduct women from the past to be surrogates in a dark, desperate bid to save mankind. And it looks like you'll be playing as one of these women, Violet Sinclair, who awakens in a bioengineering complex that is swarming with prehistoric dinosaurs and other hostile creatures to contend with. So yeah, it's looking more like a futuristic Dino Crisis, I guess, and the trailer certainly looks fun, but I admit I'm a little skeptical on this one only because I haven't seen a ton of marketing for it, and I'm not at all familiar with the developer, but hey, it could be a pleasant surprise, and this is another one I may not buy day one, but I'm certainly keeping it on my radar as somebody who really enjoyed Dino Crisis back in the day. But that's going to be it for this one, and as always, this is not a look at every single game that's coming out in December, rather I just sort of parse through all of the upcoming releases and try to narrow it down to 10 that I think look the most interesting, and these are the ones that made the cut this month. But hey, what about you? Are there any particularly great games that are on your radar for console or PC? I would love to hear about it in the comments below. As for what's coming up on the channel, I'll definitely be doing a range of Steam Machine videos in the future because I couldn't be more thrilled with the release of Valve's new hardware, so stay tuned for that. And I'll probably put out a few Christmas-themed videos as well, since it is the season and all. As always, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to watch, especially if you made it all the way to the end of this video. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.